Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions. This is your host, Daniel Moeller, and it's your home for all things psycho. I'm going to uncover a very interesting and I think pretty rare artifact. One of those bin finds that those kind of dollar bins that you find, specifically in flea markets, are my favorite place to find comics because it seems like those are the places that you will just find weird rarities. And this is certainly one of those. Those of you that follow the channel know that I greatly appreciate the outlaw power comics paradigms of independent comics in the 1980s, but I'm also really digging kind of like the early 90s, mid 90s, just weird oddities where these people were really trying to make like image comics, like their own version of image comics, or just these like huge power muscly crazy things. And it's also the early advent of computer coloring, so you get this weird blend of just kind of amateur artwork mixed with amateur coloring being done on a very cheap computer that I adore it. I love it. I think it's so much fun. So today we're gonna cover this rare artifact I found called Tool and Die from Flashpoint Comics. Now it may be hard to tell, but this comic is made on a style of paper. Well, let's look for comparison size. It's a little bit bigger. It's about the standard size of a like 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And oh yeah, that just happens to be the latest issue of my book, Simon Myth Chronicles, that you can get now if you just message me. But also, the style of paper is not even in newsprint. It's just like copier paper. So it's so much fun. And then you get these like very succinct margins from that. They didn't really know the bleed. So they just have a very precise margin for the image. It's just so much fun. Very hard to see the image quality of this, but it looks like as they're trying to be all angsty of that time during the 90s when The Crow was big in movie theaters. You got Image Comics, you got all this grit and gritty stuff. It looks like it's a guy on top of a building with rain falling on him, and he's kind of like his head is down and crying. That's their icon for Flashpoint Comics. Gotta love it. So what is this? Tool and Die. I had no idea. Actually, on the camera as I'm watching this, that is way more clear than in real life. In real life, the saturation between these two are so strong. It's real. I had to look inside to even read this. But the camera is making this all a little bit lighter, which is interesting. But yeah, this immediately drew my eye. The size drew my eye. The fact that it just looks so DIY. Like a couple of people like in their basement just making comics in the 90s. Just, yeah, 100%. I'm all in, 100% in. So, Flashpoint Comics looks like was made by, in Newport Richey, Florida, by Peter Caravet. Thomas Grozon did the script. Chad Leninger is the artist. Glenn Anderson, inker. Colorist Keith Chansey. Letterer Donald Chansey. So this is all kind of the brainchild of Peter M. Caravet, which looked up, hasn't really done a whole lot. I think that he still tried to publish independently for a while. Chad Leninger actually has a website and I think does art commissions. So he's still out there doing art. Good for him. This is one of the early pieces. This is 1994. So, a lot of fun. But right off, we get a splash page, and then we just get like parts and pieces of kind of what's going on in this guy's brain. So, his name is Sean O'Toole, but his master calls him Daimyo, Daimyo. Daimyo, whatever that means. So this is like images of his past, and what we find out later is also kind of his brother's past, and you get this like gem, broken gem in the center of it all. and that's coming from his master. So now we got a double splash page. And as you can see, the line work and everything is very much replicative of that early '90s time, where they're really trying for that kind of hyper power, hyper actiony. Just I'm not even sure that a lot of the lines even meant anything. From a lot of those creators like Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane, and sometimes they would make it work, but other times it was just lines for the sake of lines. You wanted to make it look as busy and crazy as possible. So he's dazing into this crystal that his master is using to help kind of bring up images and memories and whatnot, to kind of help him come to terms with what he needs to come to terms with, for his training, for what he's been trained for, I guess. And this guy's name is Master Occult, but occult with an E and apostrophe and an apostrophe. So, I mean, just I love the way this is done. This is so much fun. So he's like, "Hey, it's been 20 years. Why are you showing me this now?" And the master says, "The crystals revealed to me that your brother will be betrayed and assassinated. So with this training that you've had all this time, you need to go and help him. And he's been a wealthy and powerful man, and you need to go and assist him. He'll be murdered unless you stop it from happening." So his master's obviously some kind of wizard, but also has kung fu prowess. A little interesting bit here. I don't know if you can see, but just the printing was off a little bit, so the figures on this page especially are kind of doubled up. So that's kind of weird and trippy. And so then Mr. Sean O'Toole, or Daimo, goes back and remembers all the training that he's had here and how to trust his inner voice. So we get like a little training montage. You can see all this like early sort of coloring work where someone was just kind of learning how to do the airbrushing. So you get a lot of these just like light glints everywhere. I don't know how much the camera picks up, but the saturation of the print quality is so thick, actually, in real life, that you can really see how glaring some of these early coloring techniques really were. So they're talking about the blood crystal, which is this crystal that he has his power, he derives his power from, and he's breaking off a piece of it to give to Daimo, or Sean, in order to take some of that power with him. And then Sean reminisces again, and he's thinking back on his father beating up his mother. So he came from an abusive household. It's a horrible subject matter, but also the drawings on it are just pretty interesting and silly. Like some of the choices made, looks like she's got an infinity gauntlet on, but she's washing dishes. So much space given and paid attention to this like kitchen, but really this is the powerful shot where he's supposed to be, I guess, lifting her up. It looks like he's just lifting her up on the counter, or maybe helping her down, but apparently he lifts her and throws her. And there's just all these horrible scenes where he's beating her and the kids are observing it. So again, he's just still working out his ability to draw figure work, to draw facial expressions, and you can tell during this time, as young as they were, and a lot of artists were. I'm not like down, talking down to anyone. I did this too. During the early '90s, we all just we looked at Rob Liefeld's art, we looked at Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and we just tried to draw like them. And even many artists around that time did that instead of actually drawing from life. And so you can really see that here. You can really see that come through. Not a lot of detail in the backgrounds either, but still really trying to make that coloring work. And so you get these like really heavy saturated colors because during this time, not everybody had figured out like when you color something on the computer and how it ends up in print and how different that will be. I'm having to learn that myself now, even just like kind of understanding that how heavier something will print in real life. So knowing that I'm going to probably, going to have to make it a little bit lighter than what I think I see it on the screen. Um, you know, you gotta work with it. So he was basically an alcoholic, and I don't know what this is. He like ran into somebody, or somebody was running on the road, and he ran off the cliff and he died. So much space given to just the car coming off instead of the explosion. So I'm not sure how effective that is. But it looks like some of these splash pages, though, too, where you can tell like the ink work probably was smaller and then blown up, so that some of these images were actually done in much smaller paper. So you get a lot of that. So the father died in a crash. He was an alcoholic, and this is our guy, Daimo Sean O'Toole. So he's like your rebellious teenager. He's blaming the mom because he was just kind of a douchebag teenager back then, and that's his little brother who's stuck with his mom because Daimo decides to go off, and roam the world. Gotta love the way that he's dressed. He's got this like headband, and because all teenagers did, right? We had these vests with the like fluffy, hair, coming off of the sides. That's your typical rebellious teenager look. And then again, not a lot of attention paid to the backgrounds. Not really using the page space economically, paying attention to the real estate that you have, and using it wisely. Very clear that a lot of these pages and layouts were probably just replicative of the things that like Liefeld and others were doing, who somehow made it work back then. And the staples on this are coming out too, on this paper. This is purely just copier paper as well, which is going to affect your print quality too. So that's him wandering, and he eventually found the master, and then we're back to the present day. The master pushes the stone into his chest, and that's where we get this, where that stone shard is now embedded in the chest, and he and the crystal are now one. And for some reason, the master continues talking, but the monologue we get on this scroll, even though he's still just talking regularly. And it's actually, again, it's lighter on here, but in real life it's really hard to read, because it's dark brown inks with black text. So, not a great choice, but he says in time you'll learn to wield its power, and then we get a shift to his brother, Shane O'Toole. So you get Shane and Sean and Shane. And he grew up basically being some kind of a tech wizard. He won things in the science fair, like awards and stuff, and eventually got contracted by a laboratory to start doing work even when he was really young. And he worked on developing like intelligent like prosthetics for people, and the military ended up using that to create kind of like exosuits. And what's like really great is that we just get him and his secretary, and this is the way all of the montages are working on in this. But he's just talking with his secretary about his day, and he's like, "Boy, that sure brings back memories. Back in my freshman year in college, da da da." And he's just like, basically, it's like he's telling his secretary his whole life story real quick, which is just, it's whatever you need to do, I guess, to tell the story. But then when he discovered the treachery of the military using his technology for bad, he was outraged. So that's his outrage. That's his. It looks like a vampire there, but that's just charming. I love it. I actually really love this picture of this guy just sitting here at this desk. It doesn't really even say who it is. I think that it's somebody who works for the military. But again, you can't get the saturation perfect on the screen, but it's a really deep yellow. And even though it's overly saturated, I kind of like it. I don't know why. So anyway, oh, I got it. And he just get basically his company is called Tool Enterprises, um, and so he's trying to relinquish himself from the military and do the right thing. He's developed this new kind of thing called tritonium, which is the basis of his technology, and it's very generic as to like what it is and what it even does. And I mean, this is the 90s. You got your corporate, executives, you got your techies. It was like really big in that time, and I don't think anybody even knew what they were talking about, but that was the thing. It was just that was the popular thing to do. That's what every storyline revolved around. And so that's why, since he's kind of calls himself Tool, because it's from Tool Enterprises, so Daimo and Tool, that's where you get Tool and Die. Daimo, even though it's not die, but it's like Diamyo, I guess, which is maybe like a Japanese or some kind of Asian term. But that's where you get the title Tool, Tool or Die. And then Daimo makes his appearance with his costume. He's ready to leave Japan and go find his brother, and this is what he's going to wear, apparently. This is what was cool in the 90s. This makes the book for me. That's just, yeah, I mean, good for him. If that's, I want to see people go into battle dressed with this shoulderless coat and no shirt on. That's just amazing. So he leaves his master and he's ready to go to America to find his brother. And then as he leaves, we get this image of his master at the very end saying, "Until we meet again." So you get the sense that his master is actually bad and setting him on some sort of course to get hurt himself, sabotage, whatever. Pretty fun image, but yeah, this is I don't even know. Just gonna share that with y'all for a little bit because I love you, because that's what you do. You share great things. So Newport Richey, Florida, you can get coupons. You can get autographed items, a silver autographed Tool and Die #1 coupon, or get a limited print for $3. All kinds of fun coupon things. And they're doing a talent search at this time, which is pretty cool. So yeah, talent search. They're looking for artists. They're looking for people to. And then here's an ad for one of their books, Soul. Now this, I want to see this. This kicks my ass. I want to see this book, and I saw it on eBay, but it's like $15. I'm like, man, come on, really? Who's asking for this? Like, who's asking? Like, I think maybe 1% or less of comic collectors in the world know about Flashpoint comics, but I want to read that for sure. And then, of course, you can get all these other types of editions of Tool and Die. You can get a signed edition, regular edition, gold signed for $30, gold signed by the artist, writer, and creator for $50. You can get a rare purple edition for $100. Signed them. This was the height of the speculator boom at this time, where everybody was looking to create all of these different editions of books. Different covers, variants, foil bound, whatever, because whatever rarity you made it, like this, only 500 made of the purple edition, and it's worth more. It's going to be worth that much money, and it'll be worth way more. I feel horrible for anybody who ever fell for this shit. I didn't really have the money to fall for stuff like this, but there was tons of collectors out there that were doing it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been happening. And it wasn't just the indie guys, doing it. The mainstream were the ones that started doing it, and the indie guys just followed suit. But there you go. Tool and Die. It's been a while since I've brought like a rare indie gem like this that nobody's ever heard of to the channel, but I wanted to do that because I love y'all. So there we go. Tool and Die #1. Thanks for watching and paying attention. You can hit the like button, of course, that would help me out. Subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and you can always go out and buy my comics. You can message me directly for Simon Myth Chronicles Broken Chalice number 3. Number 1 and 2 are available online. Just go to my website. You can also sign up to my Patreon. You'll get exclusive content, not only including like these videos, um, days before they're released to the public, but also you get exclusive Psychonaut Presents content of the next issue coming out that isn't being posted anywhere else. So thank you very much, everyone. Y'all stay safe out there and keep it safe.